Welcome back to Crime Chronicles. Today we take a look at the G Brothers, a notorious family gang from Everton in the United Kingdom. We will investigate how they terrorised Everton's Grizedale estate back in the early to mid-2000s, and how the police set up a special unit with the sole task of stopping the brothers' criminality. Stay tuned for another crime story that sounds like a Hollywood movie, but it happened in real life. Lying just a few miles to the north of the city centre, Everton's Grizedale estate was turned into an open-air drug market by violent criminals. Ordinary families had to look the other way as local gangsters tried to turn a residential estate into an enclave exempt from the rule of law. The Grizedale was home to the G Brothers, a crime family led by Darren and Daniel, who dominated the back streets and alleyways on the North Liverpool estate. During a trial over the 2009 murder of Tony Bromley, Liverpool Crown Court heard that the G Brothers were kingpins in the area, who led a violent gang that controlled the streets of Grizedale. The Gs were associated with very serious violence and drug dealing, and had criminal convictions to prove it. After a spate of high-profile shootings in 2004, senior officers took a strategic decision to use a dedicated team to try and take back the estate. The Community Action Team, based at Walton Lane Police Station, carried out high-profile raids on the homes of the G Brothers. There were major confrontations between the criminals and the police as they vied for control on the streets of Grizedale. However, the unit became surrounded by controversy after locals bombarded the force with complaints about its methods. And when a suspect suffered a broken arm during a drugs raid, senior officers began to lose confidence in the hand-picked team and their methods. There were allegations the police unit went rogue, fighting fire with fire in a bid to bring down the G Brothers' criminal empire. The unit saw themselves as doing the Lord's work, but fell foul of officials after concerns were raised over the tactics they employed. Former officers involved have even revealed how lines were crossed to break the family's hold on the trouble-hit estate. At the time, officers believed they had to fight with the Gs and their associates, who had turned the estate into a no-go area for ordinary people. Many people described a depressing scenario, reminiscent of Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas, where local crime bosses paid children to stand on street corners rather than go to school. At their height, the Gs were making around £20,000 a week from crime. They were running a 24-hour Class A drugs business based on the Grizedale estate. Police suspected there was another level behind the Gs, but in reality, they were simply a violent and sadistic gang. The Gs appeared to relish the notoriety and liked to be in the thick of the action. Tit-for-tat shootings became commonplace, and nobody was allowed to stand in the way of their money-making rackets. As well as their penchant for violence, the Gs flourished because of a very small-town mentality that allowed them to thrive on the Grizedale. This was a place removed from the rest of the world. In short, the Gs and their associates created a ghetto. The Gs became employers and enforcers, surrounding themselves with trusted people they had grown up with. They used their cash to buy loyalty, protection, and security. They paid young foot soldiers money that they could never earn in the legitimate economy on Civvy Street. Police used all of the technology available to them as they sought to break the criminals' grip on the area. At one point, the police put a surveillance camera in the Everton Water Tower, a landmark building in the area, and what they saw shocked them. The street dealers would operate around the clock with pay-as-you-go mobile phones, taking orders and then dispatching outriders on mountain bikes to deliver the product. Younger kid brothers who were not ready to handle the drugs and cash would instead be employed for £50 per week as lookouts to spot police. It was unimaginably difficult for locals not involved in the Gs' criminal enterprises. A survey conducted on behalf of the police on the estate showed that the fear of violence stood at a staggering 80% among the law-abiding community members on the Grizedale estate. In 2003, there were simmering tensions between the G Brothers and a rival faction of drug dealers, and by 2004, the fallout resulted in a wave of shootings across North Liverpool. On the first day of January 2004, there was a double shooting at the Royal Oak pub in West Derby, with one man dying and another left fighting for his life. In April of 2004, a hired gunman opened fire at a car on Robson Street in the Everton area. Craig Barker, a close friend of the G's, died in the attack. Ian G was seriously wounded, although Darren G escaped unhurt. Mark Richardson, who was also in the car, suffered a minor injury. Days later, Michael Singleton was shot dead. This was followed by the murder of David Regan, who was shot outside a car wash. Darren G was later found guilty of organising this gangland murder and was jailed for 18 years. After this spate of serious shootings, senior officers realised they had to take back control of the estate with a hand-picked team of police. The new team was based at Walton Lane Police Station. At the start, the streets were a no-go zone for decent people who felt vulnerable and would not leave their homes after dark. Tit-for-tat killings made it very edgy, and it was a difficult area to police. It was not an exaggeration to say you could speak to somebody one day and they would be shot the next. The most alarming thing was that young people who should have had a bright future were being dragged into the world of drug dealing and serious criminality. There were regular running street battles between cops and the gangsters, and the police seemed to be in real danger of losing the streets. Officers were attacked, but they were of the view that it was all in a day's work. The police knew that sections of the community were suffering serious intimidation and living in fear for their lives and the lives of their families. If the police couldn't take a stand to protect them, then who could? The G's were horrendous to deal with. They got right in the face of the police and knew how to provoke them. The only thing that worked was old-fashioned, old-school policing. Police took the fight to the criminals and broke some rules in the process. In just 9 months, the team of only 6 constables and 1 sergeant made more than 450 arrests, including 50 for supplying Class A drugs. They seized £2.5 million in cash and drugs, and also recovered vast amounts of counterfeit alcohol and cigarettes, which the G's sold to make money. Guns and ammunition, including a sniper rifle that was being used in the gang war, were also recovered. This activity hit the G's in their pocket. Their profits plummeted from £20,000 a week to just £3,000. Most importantly, the police stopped murders from taking place. At one point during the spring of 2004, 1 in 10 people on the Grisdale estate was arrested as part of a crackdown on gang-related crime in the area, and raids were carried out on the homes of the G brothers. During one of these raids, a man suffered a broken arm, and suddenly a spotlight was cast on how the police unit was walking a fine line to take down the G's. Members of the force were charged over the incident, although none were convicted. Support from senior officers faded away and the unit was repurposed. This allowed the G's and their associates to think they were, to a degree, untouchable. Darren G was jailed in 2006 after being convicted of conspiracy to murder in connection to David Regan's murder, and he returned to the estate after serving 12 years of his sentence. Darren G commented that the police went rogue, using heavy-handed tactics to try and smash his gang. He acknowledged that the unit targeted his gang because they were drug dealers, but also felt the police often went for people who had nothing to do with their activities. Darren G thinks the police unit damaged the community in Grisdale. Incidents of gun and gang violence have been dramatically reduced in Merseyside, and the battle for the Grisdale estate can be seen as the start of police regaining control of the streets. Do you think it's okay for the police to bend a few rules to ensure that they keep criminals off the street? We'd love to read your comments. Thank you for joining us today on Crime Chronicles. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the channel with your friends.